I was seated, tie tight, ready to drive to the reading of my son's last will and testament. The key was barely in the ignition when my neighbor rushed up, his voice sharp with alarm. "Don't start the engine. Your daughter-in-law." A chill ran down my spine. But when I finally arrived at the will reading, she fainted when she saw me. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. If I failed today, I knew with the certainty of an old engineer calculating a load-bearing wall, I would not just lose the rest of my life on the highway. I would lose the last, clean, untainted thing with my son Julian's name on it. His legacy, his memory, and the foundation I was meant to protect. The very thought ignited a silent, scorching anger that started in my gut and hardened my jaw. I was in the belly of my 3-car garage, the cold smelling of dust and motor oil and the oppressive silence of an empty house. I was settling into the driver's seat of the sedan, the black suit, my armor, feeling too heavy, the tie a silk garrote around my neck. The key was a millimeter from the ignition when the shout hit me, an auditory punch that ripped through the morning stillness. "Stone! Don't start that engine! Don't you dare!" It was Colonel Rex Vance, my neighbor, a man whose retired military intelligence career had gifted him the eyes of a hawk and the caution of a minesweeper. He was across his manicured lawn in a faded bathrobe and slippers, cutting the morning like a human siren. He didn't run like a man his age. He moved with the economical, terrifying efficiency of a threat analyst. My hand froze on the key. "What is it, Rex?" I asked, my voice flat, a sound already deadened by grief. He stopped beside the nose of the car, breathing hard, his gaze already sweeping the undercarriage, his old soldier's instincts overriding decorum. "Your daughter-in-law, Professor," he said, his voice dropping to a dangerous, conspiratorial rumble. "Serafina. She was under your hood last night. Tools. 15 minutes. Easy." He didn't have to elaborate. His certainty was absolute. "She spotted me at the window and bolted. Parked down the street like she thought the dark would hide the devil." The garage, once a sanctuary of projects and maintenance, clicked smaller, transforming into a concrete cage. The dark blue sedan, my faithful transport for 8 years, sat there gleam, a perfect, polished lie. "You're sure it was her, Rex?" I needed the legal certainty, the undeniable chain of evidence. "I'm sure," he confirmed, not blinking. His eyes, usually crinkled with good humor, were granite now. "Don't drive it. Not 1 inch. It's an IED on 4 wheels. My hands, the same hands that had guided my son Julian's first scalpel practice on fruit rinds, already knew what my structural engineer's mind refused to accept. The quiet, brutal list of ways a car can be finished. Brake lines severed, steering sabotaged, something that waits for speed. A slow, catastrophic failure designed to look like a tragic oversight due to age. On the far side of the massive cedar garage door, the oaks provided their chipper, oblivious morning chorus. The sound felt indecent. "Thank you, Rex," I managed, the words scraping out of a throat tight with fury. "You have just saved my life, and that fact will be fully documented." My anger, a cold, clinical fire now, demanded process. "What's your move, Professor? Call a pro. Now." I thumbed through my contacts, ignoring the ones for florists and caterers, and hit the number that has never failed me. Javier Ramos, the best ex-rally mechanic in the city, a man who saw vehicles as systems, not sculptures. "Javi, it's Stone. I need you at my place now. Emergency. Suspicious tampering. I repeat, sabotage." Say no more, Mr. Aldrich. Javi's voice was instantly sharp, military-grade efficient. Don't touch a damn thing. I'm en route. 15 minutes. While we waited, Rex and I maintained a silent perimeter watch. I paced divots into the sealed concrete floor, my mind a churning blueprint of vengeance and meticulous planning. I remembered changing the oil in this very spot, rotating Julian's tires, talking to myself when the house became too quiet after his diagnosis. The memory of quiet domesticity was fuel for my righteous fury. A deep diesel rumble announced Javi's van. He rolled out, a blur of work boots and a toolbox that looked like he'd been born holding it. "Morning, Professor. Tell me everything, and I mean everything," he said, his eyes already mapping the underside of my world, his professional curiosity warring with his palpable concern. "My neighbor saw Serafina under the hood last night," I stated, my voice devoid of inflection. "If I sound angry, Javi, it's because I'm white-hot, cold-blooded furious." "Good," Javi said, giving me a rare, tight nod. "Anger keeps folks from doing dumb things like starting sabotaged cars and keeps them focused on the law." He hit the switch for the hydraulic lift, and the sedan rose with a quiet, powerful hum, ascending like an old whale offering its belly up for inspection. Javi's specialized flashlight carved silver tunnels in the darkness of rubber and steel. He worked in silence, a man in a sacred space, until a soft, "Huh?" escaped his lips. Then, "There it is. Right there." "What am I looking at?" My voice cracked with an intensity I hadn't realized was still in me. "Clean cut on the main brake line. Professor," his voice was clinical, professional, a detached scientist reporting a grim discovery. "Not road wear, not a stress crack. A surgical slice. Someone wanted a very specific kind of failure at speed." He moved the beam slightly, tracing another line. "And here, tie rod ends loosened. Steering would start to wander, subtly, as you hit highway miles. You'd be fighting it, correcting, until you couldn't correct anymore. A collision looks like driver error, not malice." My throat dried up completely. 10 miles from here to the expressway. 70 miles an hour toward downtown North Harbor's cluster of skyscrapers, and then nothing but a catastrophic, final void. I saw it all. The crushed metal, the siren's glare, the headline, and I felt a sickening wave of rage that I had not seen her coming, that Julian's death had not been enough for her. "Javi, document everything," I commanded, the word document now my mantra. Photos, high-res measurements, the whole sermon, chain of custody. I want a digital file and a hard drive. I'm taking a cab to the will reading. I will not fail Julian twice. "You sure you should go, Stone?" Rex asked, a genuine concern finally breaking through his military reserve. "Oh, I'm going," I said, turning away from the gleaming car under the lift. My fury had crystallized into an icy determination. She set the stage up there for a performance I wasn't meant to attend. I intend to spoil the show. By the time Javi had his last forensic picture, the cab nosed into the driveway. I left the sedan suspended in the air like a specimen on a dissecting table and climbed into the back seat. "Thorne, Avery, and Associates," I told the driver. "The Metropolis Citadel, Monroe Avenue. And sir, no shortcuts over potholes. I'm not in the mood for surprises today." "Yes, sir," he said, glancing at my black tie and the almost palpable tension radiating off me. "Big day?" "Big enough," I muttered. The meter clicked, and my phone lit my lap with the medical timeline I'd photographed weeks ago, Julian's file. 3 weeks from tired to gone. Surgeons like my son, men of discipline and perfect health, do not vanish that fast for unforeseen complications. I had told myself 1,000 lies about why we accept the platitudes handed to us at hospital desks. Today, I was done lying. North Harbor lifted around us in glass and stone, a concrete testament to human ambition. Towers shouldered the gray sky. Windows diced the brutal light of a day marked for reckoning. The cab threaded between delivery trucks and commuters, and I watched reflection after reflection swallow my face in the glass. A man who looked like his father and his grandfather, the indelible, stubborn line of the Aldrich jaw set firm. Vindication was my goal now, the only thing that could staunch the gaping wound of grief and rage. I pictured Serafina's version of this morning. She would be sitting in a high-backed leather chair with a panoramic view of the lake, checking a platinum watch she didn't buy on sale, rehearsing a wealthy, poised widow's performance. In her script, I was a tragic footnote, a bend in the guardrail, a traffic fatality quickly swept off the evening news. Money doesn't make people evil, my father, a humble tradesman, used to say. It just makes the evil louder. We slid to the curb on Monroe, the cab idling beneath a lobby polished to the point of vanity. 43, the driver announced. I handed him a crisp 100. Keep the change, and thank you for the smooth ride. Good luck, sir, he said, sensing the battle I was about to enter. Inside, the air was all marble and chill, the receptionist's smile professional, seeing everything, yet admitting nothing. Past her, the vast, icy expanse of Lake Michigan sprawled like a sheet of hammered steel. And there she was, Serafina Thorne, backlit by a massive window, flipping a lifestyle magazine open and closed like a nervous, high society fan. The light tried to make a halo of her perfect, expensive hair. She looked up, confident in her solitude, and the color, every last drop of it, left her face in one clean, sickening wave. The glossy magazine slipped from her fingers, landing with a soft, final thud on the marble floor. Hello, Serafina, I said, my voice quiet, saturated with barely contained anger. The very sound of my survival was her defeat. Stone. I thought you weren't. She stopped herself, gathered the last vestiges of her attitude and expensive air. I wasn't sure you'd make it. You were far more sure last night, I said, just as softly, stepping closer, my eyes locked on hers, when you were under my hood. I don't know what you're talking about, she hissed, far too quickly, breaking the first rule of lying right out of the gate. Never rush the lie. Colonel Vance saw you, I countered, letting the facts hang in the frigid air like tools on a bench. And my mechanic, Javi, has just documented, photographed, and measured exactly what you did. The brake line, the tie rods, the intent. Her eyes flicked desperately toward the frosted glass of the conference room. If nerves made a sound, hers were now glass scraping on glass. You're upset, she managed, pulling on her last threadbare excuse. People imagine things when they grieve. Stone, you always hated me. Julian chose me. He warned me about you. Grief doesn't loosen tie rods. Serafina, I cut her off, my voice rising slightly, thick with the rage of a betrayed father. And it certainly doesn't cleanly slice hydraulic brake lines in the perfect place to fail after 10 miles of speed. She stood, attempting to grow taller than the undeniable truth, trying to regain the ground I had stolen from her. I had heard better bait in hardware aisles. Before I could answer the petty accusation of hatred, the door opened, and a young assistant in a charcoal suit announced with clinical detachment, "Mr. Aldrich, Miss Thorne, Mr. Thorne is ready for you." Serafina smoothed a dress that cost more than my first home, the fabric whispering a lie of elegance. "Let's get this over with," she clipped, her heels clicking a staccato rhythm of desperation. Victory down the hall. Mr. Elias Thorne's conference room had that senior partner smell. Paper, leather, and money that didn't need to apologize for itself. The panoramic view of the lake was stunning, but I kept my eyes on the man. Mr. Thorne, silver-haired and possessing the calm, focused eyes of a high-end watchmaker, stood to shake my hand. "Please have a seat, Professor Aldrich, Miss Thorne." He arranged the documents with the same obsessive care I used to arrange micro-fasteners, all squares and neat angles, nothing left to chance. "On April 1st of this year, Dr. Julian Aldrich executed a will compliant with state law," he began. "Proper witnesses, notarization. I'll read the dispositive provisions and then answer questions." Serafina angled herself to the window again, hunting for the most flattering light, seeking validation from the reflection. I kept my eyes on Mr. Thorne's fingers. They didn't tremble. Nothing about this man suggested a joke. He read, "I, Julian Harlow Aldrich, hereby devise and bequeath my entire estate, including all financial assets, properties, and business holdings, both personal and professional, to my father, Sterling Aldrich, in full recognition of his lifelong guidance, support, and protection against all forces, both foreign and domestic, that would seek to compromise my life or my legacy. There is a moment in every shop where the kid with the loudest mouth hears the quiet saw bite into hardwood and finally understands respect. That quiet, open-mouthed moment of total, devastating loss is what crossed Serafina's face. The room seemed to lean away from her. Her chair legs scraped a high, pathetic shriek across the polished wood floor. "No," she whispered, the syllable aimed not at the lawyer, but at the cruel, unyielding hand of gravity. "That's not—" "He wouldn't." "Miss Thorne," Mr. Thorne said, his voice the patient tone of a professor correcting a student who hadn't done the required reading. "The document is regular on its face, properly witnessed, and executed in this office." "The spouse is entitled," she stammered, desperation making her voice ugly. "Not in the manner you suppose," he corrected, his voice flat. "Not when a will disposes of the entire estate in this specific way with requisite formalities." He slid a heavy, linen envelope toward me. "Professor Aldrich, Julian left a personal note. He asked that it be read by you alone, but I will summarize the relevant caution. He was deeply concerned for your safety in the immediate future." I weighed the letter in my palm. The paper held the same weight as the day Julian brought home his first science fair ribbon. I didn't open it. Not then. Some things are private, even when the world thinks it owns a piece of your grief. Serafina's shock hardened like poured resin. "This is a setup. You—" She pointed a shaking finger at me, the polished nail a grotesque extension of her intent. "You put words in his mouth. You influenced him. This is fraud!" "Miss Thorne," Mr. Thorne cut in, his voice now colder than the lake outside. "The original is in our vault, along with video of the execution ceremony. I was present. So were 3 reputable witnesses. Your counsel may inspect. You will find that Dr. Aldrich was lucid, articulate, and completely certain of his wishes." She pushed up from the table, overbalanced, and her chair clapped the floor with the sound of a final, irreversible decision. The receptionist in the outer office went very still. The lake went on being a lake. "I'll contest this for years," she hissed, her voice vibrating with venomous anger. "You'll be dead before you touch a dollar." "I've touched plenty of dollars in my life, Serafina," I replied, the sheer exhaustion of the morning replacing my fury with a deep, settling calm, a state that felt closer to vindication than anger. Never needed to cut a brake line to do it. Her mouth opened and shut like a fish without water. For a half-second, I thought she would lunge for the documents. Then her eyes rolled up like a shade in a rented room, and she folded. An expensive silk dress puddled on an expensive floor. Mr. Thorne was already moving, but I got there first. Reflex overriding protocol. I turned her on her side, checking her airway, the old habit of a father watching over his child, an automatic act of forgiveness for the human condition, even for one so poisoned. "On call building medical," Mr. Thorne told his assistant at the door, who vanished. He turned back to me, perfectly composed. "Professor, do you want to proceed after she's seen to?" "I want a certified copy of the will," I said, rising smoothly. "And I want a time-stamped, signed letter from your office to the district attorney confirming today's reading. Specifically, the date Julian signed it. You'll have both." He tapped a pen against the desk. "And if you'll allow an observation, Professor Aldrich, your restraint today may save you considerable trouble tomorrow." "I've been restraining myself since I was 12, I said, thinking of my father's severe, practical philosophy. My shop teacher had a belt and a philosophy. Do the work well, and let the work speak. A nurse from the building clinic arrived with smelling salts and a practiced, weary face. Serafina came back to the world with a ragged moan and a curse aimed solely at me. When she focused, something hot and small flared in her eyes, the kind of primitive spark men use to flint before matches. "Security," Mr. Thorne said mildly, and two large, silent guards appeared like the punchline to a very expensive joke. They didn't touch her. They didn't have to. She left in a hurricane of designer perfume and an exit line about lawyers and a protracted war. The room settled. Mr. Thorne handed me a clean, embossed copy of the will and a thin folder of certifications. I tucked them into my briefcase. The brass latch clicked like a promise kept to Julian. Out in the hall, the receptionist kept her eyes glued to safe places. Screen, calendar, anything that wasn't people. The elevator doors slid open. On the ride down, I let my mind inventory the day's structural integrity. A neighbor who still watched over a man's life. A mechanic who knew the difference between wear and criminal intent. A will that named what Julian felt in his bones. And a woman who preferred reflections to mirrors. For the first time since Julian entered the hospital, the crushing pressure in my chest eased a notch. The cab line was short. I climbed in, set the briefcase carefully at my feet, and said, "Home." "Same address, Professor?" the driver asked. "Same," I confirmed. "And take Monroe all the way. I'm not in the mood for any more surprises." We pulled into the sunlight. Downtown stepped back into its reflections. I caught one more of my face in the passenger window. Older than yesterday, the lines deeper, but somehow steadier. The meter ticked, marking the passage of time, real time, not the compressed, explosive time of her sabotage. My phone buzzed, and I let it. Rex, Javi, eventually somebody from the DA's office. Right now, I wanted the small, quiet reward an old man earns when he makes it through a bad morning without doing something that would compromise his soul. I rolled down the window an inch and let the lake air find me. It smelled like a clean start. Back in the garage, the sedan still waited on the lift, underbelly lit like a crime scene. Javi wiped his hands and gave me a tight, respectful nod. Got what you needed, Professor? More than I expected. Javi, I said. And you? Just enough to make a state's attorney sit up straight. That little glisten there. He pointed to a slow, oily bead gathering on the cut line. That's brake fluid, the kind of proof that gets juries quiet. I looked at the drop and could see as plain as any blueprint the future she had sketched for me. The siren, the headline, the pitying neighbors. But we, Rex, Javi, Julian, and I, had redrawn it. Javi, send me every photo. Rex, I'll need your full statement, and I'm buying both of you dinner. Not today, but soon. You owe me nothing, Stone, Rex said from the side door where he'd been standing quietly, like a good lookout. You raised a good man. The world can stand to see more of that kind of integrity. I didn't trust my voice, so I simply nodded. The afternoon settled on the roof like a comforting hand. I carried the briefcase inside, set it on the kitchen table, and finally opened Julian's personal letter. His handwriting was still the upright, stubborn architectural print he used on his third-grade science project. Magnets and paper clips, and the way small forces add up. Dad, be careful. It began. Don't let what I built turn into what breaks you. I know you'll know what to do. I read it twice. Then I made coffee the old way, in the dented steel pot that spits and hisses like an opinionated uncle. And I sat with the cup and the will and the parts of my boy that didn't fit into a document. Outside, a delivery truck clattered past. Somewhere, Serafina was practicing a new, desperate story in a mirror. Tomorrow, I'd start the next thing. The legal campaign, the final defense of my son's memory. Today, I was alive. The line hadn't snapped, and that felt like a verdict all its own, a moment of peace, earned through righteous anger and the simple, profound act of survival. By late afternoon, the light in my kitchen had the flat, honest look of a shop floor. After closing, I rinsed the coffee pot and called Mr. Thorne first. The line connected on the second ring, a habit of men whose time is billed at 4 figures, and Mr. Thorne's voice, smooth as worn leather, entirely devoid of emotion, came across the line. "I'm Professor Aldrich," he stated, as if greeting a partner in the next office. "We have executed the instructions. The certified copy of Dr. Julian Aldrich's will and the attestation letter to the district attorney's office are prepared. A messenger is currently en route to your address with duplicates for your physical file. The originals remain secured here, naturally." The word secured in his mouth was a guarantee, like a bank vault locking down its core. "Good," I said, the sound of the word short, clipped, and heavy with the resolution of righteous anger. "I require a digital copy of the will scan and the attestation emailed immediately, with a hard copy sent directly to the DA's intake line." "Already sent," Thorne confirmed, the lack of hesitation a testament to the firm's brutal, unwavering efficiency. "In addition, Professor, we were proactive. We retrieved the building security footage from the main lobby common area this morning. Our standard retention policy, 30 days for common area video, means your daughter-in-law's Serafina's entrance, her sudden paralysis upon seeing you, and the unfortunate fainting episode are all recorded. No audio, Professor, but the timestamps are precise and the visual narrative is, shall we say, unambiguous evidence of her extreme reaction." "She'd hold it tight. Mr. Thorne," I ordered, the phrase sounding more like a military command than a client request. Someone will undoubtedly ask for that footage under subpoena. They will not get it easily, and they will only get it after a formal challenge is established. Understood, Professor. We operate on the principle of maximum legal friction. You will be notified the moment a discovery request touches our server. I believed him implicitly. Senior partners don't earn hair like polished silver by losing things in the clutter of evidence. I hung up, the click of the phone a small, satisfying punctuation mark on the morning's first legal victory, a cold counterpoint to the fury still thrumming beneath my skin. The next call was to Javi Ramos, the ex-rally mechanic. He answered with a simple, expectant, "Ready?" "More than," I replied, my voice now matching his professional detachment. "The evidence must be prepared for the state's attorney. Meticulously. Javi, we must present an airtight chain of custody that an engineer could sign off on." I was already back in the garage, standing over the dark blue sedan on the lift, now a clinical, terrible specimen. I bagged the cut section of the brake line myself, Javi, using fresh surgical gloves from the kit Julian left behind, photographed with a calibrated scale for absolute size reference, and sealed the high-gauge plastic bag with serialized, tamper-evident security tape. I've also generated a complete print set of the photos, and the originals are on an SD card with a cryptographic checksum file. I made myself a custom chain of custody log, initialed and dated at every step, so no one can try to get cute with suggesting the evidence was compromised. The unspoken truth hung in the air between us. For when the Blue Room, the police, or the defense inevitably tries to make the quality of the evidence my problem, I'd spent enough years building bridges and skyscrapers to know exactly how blame behaves. It always seeks the most vulnerable, least precise party, and absolute precision is the only reliable shield. "Colonel Rex Vance is coming too," I added. "He will write his official witness statement at the station, a formal declaration from a retired law enforcement officer." "Good," Javi replied, his tone approving. "Folks take retired cops seriously, Professor, even the ones they didn't invite to poker night. It lends immediate weight to the claim. It gives the case structure, not just emotion." We met in my garage, now definitively a war room, quiet, careful, jackets zipped against the growing afternoon chill. The sedan still hovered motionless on the lift like a held breath, an airborne crime scene waiting for its autopsy. Javi handed me a manila envelope fat with the prints and forms. Rex's notepad was already open, headed with neat block letters. Date, time, observed, intent. "You sure you want to ride with me, Professor?" Javi asked, his concern practical and procedural. "If she's as bold as we think, she may have a watcher deployed to track our movements. She can watch me file paperwork." "Javi," I said, a flicker of cold, dark amusement crossing my face. It's thrilling television for a high-society predator. The sight of me delivering the documentation of her failure will be its own reward. It was not paranoia to ride together. It was applied physics. 3 vehicles are a convoy, a clear, unified statement. They are exponentially safer than one when someone decides to execute a fender bump distraction or force a dangerous, high-speed turn. We left the house in a tight little convoy. Javi's heavy-duty service van, packed with tools and mechanical expertise. In front, Rex behind in his old, dependable, high-visibility pickup, and me in the middle seat of the van, the manila envelope resting on my lap like a priceless, terrible artifact, the proof of an attempted murder. North Harbor's 3rd Precinct sat in a tired, faded brick building that tried hard to pretend it used to be a local schoolhouse, with sympathetic, slightly sagging windows and a huge, faded flag that had seen too much wind and too many broken promises. Inside, The air was printer warm, smelling like synthetic plastic and weak, stale coffee that had long since learned resignation. The desk sergeant was a large, capable woman who looked exactly like every efficient, done-with-nonsense shop foreman I'd ever met. "What can we do for you, gentlemen?" she asked, her voice a low, level hum of procedural exhaustion. "Report of vehicle tampering with intent to kill," I stated, my voice cutting through the dull noise with the sharp edge of the facts. "Evidence in hand. Primary witness present. The defendant is the deceased's spouse, and the motive is probate fraud." The sergeant's eyebrows made a brief, impressive run for better ground on her forehead, then returned to their usual position of weary skepticism. She buzzed a door, and we were shown into a sterile interview room with fewer dents in the table than I had expected. A detective in a tan suit arrived, a man whose dark tie had seen a long, necessary day. Detective Morales, his badge clipped discreetly to his belt, offered a nod that was neither friendly nor hostile, merely observational. "I'm Detective Morales," he said. "Let's go one at a time. Professor Aldrich, you first. We'll follow with Mr. Jaw Ramos, then Colonel Vance." I started at the beginning and kept it straight, chronological and clinical, reporting only verifiable data. I told him about the garage, Rex at the window, Serafina under the hood, the morning at the firm, and the specific, unexpected content of Julian's will. I did not color in the edges. Men like Morales don't need watercolor. They require blueprint-grade honesty. He stopped me only for absolute values. Times, distances, street names, the exact words Rex had used. "Don't start that engine." And the definitive names of the legal firm. When I finished, the emotional charge had been entirely transferred from my mind to the cold facts on his notepad. Morales then turned to Javi. Javi laid the manila envelope on the table as if it were a newborn child. Precious, fragile, and demanding immediate protection. He opened it with a precise scissor cut, never tearing, because a scissor cut is easier to swear to under oath than a manual tear. He slid out the prints. Each got a sticky note with a number, a date, and a time. He explained the photography protocol. One shot with a ruler, one with a coin for scale, and one wide-angle shot so a jury could clearly understand the car wasn't floating in the void. It was fixed in my home garage. Then he produced the bagged brake line segment, its ends horribly neat and definitively wrong. The clean slice was the most damning evidence. Morales looked at it the way a man looks at his first gray hair, an unwelcome, undeniable sign of decay and mortal threat. "Mind if I take a picture of that bag and the seal?" Morales asked, pulling out his own standard-issue camera. "My mind?" Javi scoffed, the nearest he got to true humor. "I insist. Detective, we want your evidence of our evidence." Morales photographed, then had Javi sign the back of the print and the specialized chain of custody form the detective produced from a folder that had clearly seen things no one should have to see. Rex went last. He told his story plain and slow, using the precise, neutral language of his former profession. He did the cop thing where you say "I observed" instead of "I saw," and "individual" instead of "woman." It didn't sound silly because he still had the ghost of the badge on him, the discipline of a career soldier. "You recognize Miss Thorne?" Morales asked him. "I've seen her in the neighborhood and at the funeral." "Detective," Rex replied. "Saw her plainly last night. Streetlight behind her. But when she turned, the light caught her face, specifically the nickel zipper pull on her jacket. She saw me. She left fast. That's not proof of crime, but it is behavior," Morales noted, his pen clicking again. Behavior isn't nothing. All right, Professor, here is what happens next. Forensics will definitely want that car. We can send a unit now to secure the scene and request a city tow lot, or you can pay to have it towed to a third-party lab, and we will put a formal police hold on it while we sort out jurisdiction. I am not offended either way, but I prefer transparency. I want an independent exam, I stated immediately, my engineering training demanding verifiable external data. No offense taken on your end, I hope. None, Professor, he replied, without blinking. Chulati, write the name of your lab on the form we require. We'll fax the hold notice and cross-reference your file number immediately, so no one accidentally releases it to anyone else. He said accidentally in the way a man who has met too many accidents repeatedly learns to pronounce the word with a specific, weary irony. I slid the form back and put down the name of a private facility Javi trusted implicitly. Tri-County Forensics, a place in an industrial park where truth and cold metal shared a wall. Any other threats? Morales asked, his gaze sharp and direct. Texts, calls, emails, just the kind with wrenches and wire cutters, I replied. He nodded, accepting the coded language of industrial malice. You'll receive a case number before you leave. If you get any contact from Serafina or her people, save it. Screenshots, voicemails, hand-delivered letters from gentlemen in ill-fitting suits. Do not respond beyond the word noted. Forward everything to me immediately. If a process server shows up, accept service. It looks good in court, Professor, like you have nothing to hide. I know the drill, Detective, I said. I figured, he said, rising. One more ask. Do not call her. Do not go near her house. If her counsel, and they will, reaches out, refer them directly to Mr. Thorne. This is a good case. Professor, don't make it complicated by providing her with any emotional ammunition. I have a belt and a philosophy. Detective, I said, a rare, small smile touching my lips. He returned a half smile, a gesture to show he'd listened earlier to the parts where men make small, tired jokes to check for shared species. Outside the interview room, the character actors changed. A uniform officer took the bagged evidence, signed the form, signed Javi's log, had Javi sign his, and had me initial a box stating I had relinquished the item. The segment of brake line was placed in an evidence locker with a decisive clack of steel that always sounds like finality in these buildings. They gave me a copy of the case number on a pink sheet of paper that would inevitably curl by morning. Back in the lobby, a young officer with a severe buzz cut and the look of a decent algebra student handed me a card. Detective Morales' direct line. Professor, he said, if it goes to voicemail, leave your number twice. He calls back. I thanked him, and we stepped into the early evening, the sky having that bruised peach look that makes you momentarily forgive cities the things you shouldn't. We crossed the parking lot, and it took Colonel Rex Vance, the watchman, to spot the tail. Van, he said low, his voice barely a breath. 2 rows over. Dark SUV, black, windows too clean for a car that old. It's been waiting for us. Javi didn't look, didn't flinch. He opened the passenger door and tossed me the envelope with the case copies. Move naturally, he instructed. Natural is harder than fast, but less noticeable. He pulled us out of the space and onto the street. Rex came behind, deliberately keeping one car between us. I checked the side mirror and caught a slice of the SUV's grille, the kind of generic chrome smile car makers put on a million faces. It moved when we moved. When we slowed, it slowed. When we drove the limit, It obeyed all posted philosophy. "All right," Rex said, his voice coming through the speakerphone in the van like a command in a tactical brief. "We're going to give them a choice. Javi, you take Ashland to 15th, then a sharp left toward the river." He was already setting up the split. "Professor, call Tri-County and tell them we'll arrive in 20. We're going to drop the van at the lab gate with the tech waiting outside." The goal was absolute. A camera sees the clear, clean handoff of the evidence documentation. Meanwhile, I'm going to peel off onto Lyman and park in front of Greer's Pharmacy. They've got the old-style dome camera that neighbors love. If the tail splits, we've learned something. If the tail stays on you, I'm your witness to the handoff. If the tail stays on me, I'll smile for the camera and call Morales. "Copy," Javi said, operating the gear shift like he was tuning a cello. "My turn." I called Tri-County. A woman with a voice like a steel ruler answered. "Tri-County Forensics." "Name's Aldrich," I said. "Mechanic Ramos called earlier. We're inbound with the sealed photo log and evidence documentation. We'd like to make the physical handoff outside, on your camera system, for security." "You got it, Professor," she said, no hesitation, her professionalism matching mine. "We'll meet you by the big roll-up door. We record all our curbside exchanges. You'll sign our book. We'll sign yours." "You bringing an ex-cop?" she added, a hint of something like a smile in her voice. "They love our pens." "Officer retired." "Yes, I am. He's in the car behind us." She laughed once. "We'll put on our good manners, then." The SUV hung back 2 cars at a light, pretending it had someplace better to be. Rex's voice cut in again. "They're staying with you, Professor. The choice is made. They care about the evidence. Can't tell if it's her or her lawyer's guy with the tinted glass. Let's not make them crash," I said. "Wasn't planning to," Rex replied. "But if they touch your van, I will re-enlist for 5 minutes of extreme prejudice." At Ashland, we did our left toward the river under a bridge that had lost a paint war years ago. Industrial parks have a way of reading a man's desires back to him, and what this one read was, "Keep driving and stay focused." Tri-County sat in a long, low building with security lights already thinking about their evening shift. Outside the roll-up door, a woman in a gray hoodie and lab badge waited with a clipboard, and a man with a barcode scanner his hands had learned to trust. "Mr. Aldrich?" she asked when we rolled up. "I'm Anne. This is Lyle." Javi stepped out first, an embodiment of mechanical competence. Rex pulled up across the way, where the pharmacy camera could clearly see him. The SUV slowed a half-block down, then kept going, as if it had suddenly always wanted to see what was on the next street. I watched it in the side mirror until it became a fact that had been forced to pick a new hobby. "Envelope," Anne said. I handed it over. She opened it with a small, sharp blade she could probably use to shave if the lab got cheap with razors. She checked the seals on our photos and our log, then had Javi read off the bag number for the brake line segment the precinct still held on its hold slip. "Good," she said. "When we pick up the physical evidence from the city evidence lot, we'll call Detective Morales and sign both logs together. We like 3 signatures on the big days." We signed their book. They signed Javi's. Rex walked over, his eyes smiling, his cheeks calm. "Plate on that SUV ended in 7QX, he said quietly. "Could be nothing. Could be rented. Could be a private plate from out of county. I'll pass it to Morales immediately." Anne glanced past us at the street. "You boys making friends?" she asked, her voice dry, indicating the tail. "Folks love vans with ladders. They attract attention." Javi just said, They love ours too. Anne's joke had a professional edge that told me she knew exactly who sometimes follows evidence labs. The roll-up door thunked shut behind Anne and Lyle, and our envelope went with it. A tiny click sounded from the door, locks doing their chosen work. We stood there for a beat, 3 men on a cold, concrete loading dock who had just successfully offloaded a piano without dropping it. "You feel that?" Rex asked, not looking at me. "What?" I replied, still watching the SUV's last known trajectory. "That bit of slack in the line," he said. "It means we can breathe. Not too much, though," he warned, his eyes flicking back to me. "Next bit's uphill, stone." On the drive back, we played a grim game of what will she try next. It's not a game you ever want to win, but you must play it to survive. Civil court first, we figured. An emergency motion to enjoin the will's execution, painted thick with weasel words like undue influence and incapacity. Then a calculated public relations tour, with Serafina, the grieving widow, lamenting her cruel father-in-law, often at a latte counter in front of a reporter who went to school with her cousin. Then the small, persistent annoyances, frivolous letters, process servers showing up at dusk, or friends with manufactured failed tempers at my front walk. "She'll test for fear," Rex said, cataloging the tactics. "Then for fatigue. If neither works, she'll test for dumb. Don't give her dumb, Professor." "I'm fresh out," I said. "I used it all up raising a boy who refused to slow down on a bicycle." We stopped at my bank. I rented a safe deposit box and put the embossed copy of the will inside, the ultimate vindication secured in cold steel. The clerk had a face designed for keeping secrets. She didn't ask what the paper was, and I didn't tell her. I made a clean scan at their public copier anyway, because a close enough copy lives a life of its own, and sometimes that life is enough to keep the pressure on. Back home, the air in the garage felt less like a trap and more like a place with tools in it, a sanctuary restored. Javi set the lift down with professional smoothness, so the sedan's tires finally kissed the concrete. He chained the wheels and fixed a large, red tag to the steering wheel, the size of a diner napkin. That read, "Do not operate. Police hold. Evidence." He took a picture of the tag, because he's a man after my own meticulous heart. "Tomorrow morning," Javi said, wiping his hands. "Tri-County's driver will meet the city evidence clerk with me. If there's a hiccup, Professor, I'll hiccup louder. I'll be there, too," I insisted. "You don't have to," Javi countered, his eyes tired but firm. "You've got an appointment with your own heart rate and the battle planning. Let me handle the bureaucracy. You handle the battle planning." I didn't argue. He was right. My job was over. For now. The long game required a clear head, not a tired body. I nodded my acceptance of his protection. The first genuine, unalloyed peace I'd felt all day. Men like Professor Sterling Aldrich, men who talk a big game about structural independence and self-reliance, are always the first to realize the profound, quiet relief when someone trustworthy offers to push the heavy end of a metaphorical couch. The immediate, consuming white-hot anger I had felt upon discovering Serafina's sabotage was slowly being channeled into meticulous, procedural vindication. I called Elias Thorne, the vault, on my secured line, and he answered on the second ring, the habit of a senior partner who understands that money and malice operate outside of normal business hours. "Professor Aldrich," he said, his voice a calm ballast against the storm, "we've completed the documentation. Your certified copy of Dr. Julian Aldrich's will and the attestation letter for the district attorney are signed, sealed, and a messenger is en route to your address with duplicates. The originals, as policy dictates, remain here in our vault." "Excellent," I confirmed, my voice as flat and functional as a sheet of steel. "Please email a high-resolution scan to my encrypted address and ensure a hard copy is delivered directly to the DA's intake line." "Already dispatched, Professor," he replied, the efficiency an almost cruel comfort. Furthermore, and perhaps more crucially for the criminal file, we retrieved the building's security footage from the lobby this morning. Our retention policy, which keeps 30 days of common area video, recorded Serafina's presence and the subsequent fainting episode in high definition. No audio, unfortunately, but the precise timestamps and the visual narrative are unmistakable. We have not released it, nor will we without a court order. "Hold it tight, Mr. Thorne," I instructed. "Someone will attempt to bury that footage. That film is the moment the civil case becomes a criminal investigation." "Understood," he said. "Senior partners do not achieve this level of success by losing things." I believed him. I hung up and immediately dialed Javi Ramos. "Van ready for a field trip, Javi?" I asked. "It's always ready for a field trip, Professor." I bagged the cut section of the brake line with surgical gloves, photographed it with a ruler for scale, and sealed the bag with 3 strips of tamper tape. I've also got a print set of photos and the digital originals on an SD card with a full checksum log. We have the ironclad chain of custody the DA will require. He didn't have to say for when the defense lawyers try to make it look like my problem. I'd spent enough years in factories and on construction sites to know exactly how blame behaves. It always flows downhill toward the softest target. Colonel Rex Vance was coming too. "Rex will write his statement at the 3rd Precinct," I said. "Good," Javi affirmed. "Folks take a retired military intelligence officer seriously, even the ones who didn't invite him to their poker night." We met in my garage, the war room, quiet, careful, our jackets zipped against the late afternoon. The dark blue sedan still hovered on the lift like a held breath, now simply an item of forensic evidence. Javi handed me the manila envelope, fat with prints and forms. Rex's notepad was already open, headed with neat block letters. Date, time, observed, intent. "You still sure you want to ride with me, Professor?" Javi asked. "A final check. If she's as bold as we think, she may have a watcher deployed." "She can watch me file the paperwork," I said, my anger now a cold, distilled focus. It's thrilling television for her, watching the victim secure the evidence of her failure. We left the house in a tight little convoy. Javi's service van in front, Rex behind in his sturdy pickup, and me in the middle, the envelope in my lap, feeling the weight of Julian's memory. It wasn't paranoia to ride this way. It was applied engineering. 3 vehicles are a convoy. 1 vehicle is a liability. North Harbor's 3rd Precinct, disguised as a schoolhouse, received us with an air of resigned procedure. The desk sergeant, looking like every competent, fed-up foreman I'd ever met, directed us to an interview room. Detective Morales, in a tan suit and a tie that had seen a long, necessary day, arrived promptly. "I'm Detective Morales," he said, cutting straight to the chase. "Let's go one at a time. Professor Aldrich, you first." I started at the beginning. The garage, Rex's shout, Serafina under the hood, the firm, and the will. I kept it straight, chronological, and purely factual. Morales stopped me only for absolute values. Times, distances, the exact quote from Rex, and the names of the firm and the lawyer. When I finished, The story had been transformed from a personal tragedy into a prosecutable timeline. Morales then turned to Javi, who laid the envelope on the table like a formal, scientific pronouncement. Javi opened it with a precise scissor cut, displaying the prints. One with a ruler, one with a coin, one wide-angle shot to establish context, each labeled and dated. Then he produced the bagged brake line segment, its cleanly severed ends the most damning evidence of malice. The detective looked at it the way a man looks at the physical manifestation of intent. "Mind if I take a picture of that bag and the seal?" Morales asked. "Mind?" Javi scoffed. "Detective, I insist." Morales photographed, then had Javi sign the back of the print and the specialized chain of custody form the detective produced from a folder that had clearly seen things. Rex went last, his testimony slow, plain, and devastatingly precise. He used the disciplined language of his career. I observed, "The individual, my judgment." "You recognize Miss Thorne?" Morales asked. "I've seen her in the neighborhood and at the funeral," Rex said. "Saw her plainly last night. Street light behind her, but when she turned, the light caught her face and the specific nickel zipper on her jacket. She saw me. She left fast." "Behavior isn't nothing," Morales affirmed. "Here's what happens next. Forensics will want that car. You can use the city tow lot, or you can use an independent lab. Independent exam," I stated immediately. "No offense taken on your end, I hope." "None, Professor," he said. "Write the name of your lab on the form, and we'll fax the hold notice immediately, so no one accidentally releases it to anyone else." He handed me a form and a pen that wrote like a nail. I put down Tri-County Forensics, a place Javi trusted. "Any threats? Texts? Calls?" Morales asked. "Just the kind with wrenches," I said. He nodded. "You'll get a case number before you leave. If you get any contact, save it, but don't respond beyond noted. If a process server shows up, accept service. It looks good in court." "I know the drill," I said. "I figured," he replied. He stood. "One more ask. Don't call her. Don't go near her house. If her counsel reaches out, refer them to Mr. Thorne. This is a good case. Don't make it complicated." "I have a belt and a philosophy. Detective," I replied, feeling the cool, quiet burn of vindication. Outside, a uniformed officer took the bag, signed the form, signed Javi's log, had Javi sign his, and placed the evidence in a locker with the final, terrible clack of steel. They gave me a copy of the case number on a pink sheet that would curl by morning. We stepped out, and Rex saw the tail immediately. "Van," he said low. "You're 2 rows over. Dark SUV, same vanity plate ending in 7QX we saw yesterday, but different driver. They're sharing keys." "Move naturally," Javi instructed, pulling the van smoothly into the street. Rex came behind, a car between us. I watched the generic chrome smile of the SUV in the side mirror. It obeyed the law, but it followed. "All right," Rex's voice came over the speakerphone from his truck. "We're going to give them a choice. Javi, you take Ashland to 15th, then left toward the river. Professor, call Tri-County Forensics and tell them we'll arrive in 20. We're going to drop the evidence documentation at the lab gate with the tech waiting outside to record the handoff. I'm going to peel off to Lyman and park at Greer's Pharmacy. Good dome camera there. If the tail splits, we've learned something. If the tail stays on you, I'm your witness to the handoff." I called the lab. A woman named Anne, with a voice like a steel rule, answered. "Tri-County Forensics. Name's Aldrich. Mechanic Ramos called. We're inbound with a sealed photo log and chain of custody. We'd like to make the handoff curbside, on your security camera. You got it, she said. We'll meet you by the big roll-up door. We record all our curbside exchanges. At Ashland, we did the left toward the industrial park. The SUV stayed 2 cars back. They're staying with you, Rex confirmed. They care about the evidence of the crime, not the witness. Tri-County sat in a long, low building. Outside the roll-up door, Anne waited with a clipboard and Lyle with a scanner. Javi rolled up, and Rex parked across the street where the camera could see him clearly. The SUV slowed a half-block down, then kept going as if it had suddenly remembered an urgent appointment on the next street. The choice made. I handed Anne the envelope. She checked the seals on our photo prints and our log, then confirmed the number for the brake line segment that still sat in the precinct's evidence locker. Good, she said. We like 3 signatures on the big days. We signed their book. They signed Javi's. Rex walked over, his eyes smiling. Plate was 7QX. Anne, he said. Just a hunch. Anne glanced at the street, a small edge of professional weariness in her voice. Folks love vans with ladders. Colonel, they love ours, too. The roll-up door thunked shut behind Anne and Lyle, and our envelope was inside. You feel that? Rex asked me. What? I said. That bit of slack in the line, he said, a quiet reflection of the vindication we had just secured. It means we can breathe. On the drive back, we played the grim game of what will she try next. Civil court, PR tour, testing for fear, fatigue, then dumb. Don't give her dumb, Rex warned. I stopped at the bank, rented a safe deposit box, and put the embossed copy of the will inside. The clerk had the face of a person designed for keeping secrets. I made an extra public copy anyway. A close enough copy lives a life of its own. Back home, Javi set the lift down, and the sedan's tires finally kissed the concrete. He chained the wheels and put a red tag on the steering wheel. Do not operate. Police hold. Evidence. He took a picture of the tag, because he's a man after my heart. Tomorrow morning, Javi said, Tri-County's driver will meet the city evidence clerk with me. If there's a hiccup, I'll hiccup louder. I'll be there, too, I said. You don't have to, Professor, Javi insisted, his voice gentle. You've got an appointment with your own heart rate and the strategic plan. Let me handle the bureaucracy. I did not argue. Men like us talk a big game about independence until someone offers to push the heavy end of a couch. Men like me, men who talk a big game about being self-sufficient and independent, are always the ones who crumble the fastest until someone offers to push the heavy end of a couch. And after the intensity of the police station, I was more than ready for a moment of shared, competent labor. So we went inside and I made us sandwiches the way my wife Ellen used to make them. Thick slabs of summer tomato, freshly cracked black pepper, and a straight, assured line of mustard that only a person sure of their signature would lay down. And we ate at the kitchen table with our paperwork. The pink sheet, the custody log, the legal forms, spread like a grim picnic blanket, and my phone buzzed, an unknown number breaking the companionable silence. I let it ring once, then answered. Mr. Aldrich, a woman's voice said, professional and sharp. Assistant District Attorney Claire Nuon. Detective Morales briefed me extensively, and we've also received Mr. Thorne's letter and the scan of the will. First, I'm truly sorry for your loss, and second, I'm incredibly glad you didn't drive that sedan. Thank you, I said, the words simple and hard won. What do you need from me right now? Ada Nuon? For now, nothing you haven't already done, she replied. We'll open an official criminal investigation file marked for priority review. I don't want to overpromise, but if Tri-County Forensics confirms what your mechanic Javi documented about the brake line, we may move faster than the usual glacial pace you expect from the government. If Serafina Vale, or anyone associated with her, contacts you in any way that feels wrong, call 911 first, and then call me. Voicemail is fine. I check it in my sleep. Understood, I confirmed, noting the deliberate escalation of protocol. And Mr. Aldrich, she added, her voice dropping a fraction. Don't talk to the press. If this gets noisy, I'll give you a single line to hold that keeps all of our legal options open. A tactical silence. I appreciate a good line. Ada Nuon, I said, and after we hung up, Javi raised the last quarter of his sandwich like a toast. To lines that hold, Professor, he said, and we finished the meal in a quiet, necessary companionship. When the plates were clean and the chaotic paperwork had been organized into neat, date-stamped piles, Rex stood to go. I'll swing by after dawn, he said. Folks who follow cars like to do it in the morning, too. It makes them feel like part of the day, less like shadows. Thank you, Colonel, I said, using his military title to acknowledge the depth of his commitment. He paused at the door, put a large, reassuring hand on my shoulder. A brief, exact gesture, permission asked and immediately given. You're doing right, Gus, he said, using my nickname. They shall make you doubt it. Hold fast. When the house was still, I took Julian's letter back out, the last one he ever sent. I didn't read it. I just held it, letting the paper do what voices no longer could. Be solid. Be present for me while I remembered how to be solid for myself. Before bed, I did the small, automatic rituals that keep an old house honest. Checked the back door latch twice, set the interior alarm, and put the heavy, industrial-grade flashlight where a hand remembers it by instinct. I laid the pink case sheet with the number on the dresser, right beside my wallet and watch, as if it were a new, terrible ID I now had to wear, and out in the dark somewhere. I knew that someone in that dark SUV was parked on a quiet street, practicing being utterly unremarkable, but inside my chest, the slack in the line held. Tomorrow, we would tug it again, but tonight, I let the house breathe, and I breathed with it. By sunrise, the garage had the tidy, sterile look of a man pretending he sleeps soundly, and I brewed coffee, black as freshly polished shop rags, meeting Javi in the driveway just as Rex slid in behind us, punctual as a finely tuned metronome. We drove to the city evidence lot like it was a chapel, a place for solemn observance, and a clerk with a barcode scanner and zero poetry opened a cage to reveal Lyle, Anne's man from Tri-County Forensics, waiting with a clipboard and his gloves already on. We signed the transfer documents in triplicate, then watched them carefully rebag the cut brake line and log the number with the same meticulous care my wife used to fold good linens. The transfer an act of procedural reverence. Clean transfer. Professor, Javi said when we stepped back into the morning light. If anyone sneezes on that evidence now, they'll need 4 signatures to say, bless you. Rex scanned the perimeter like a trained barometer reading the atmosphere. Blue sedan at the corner, he said quietly, his voice a low warning. Same vanity plate ending in 7QX we saw yesterday, but different driver. Someone's sharing the keys, keeping a tight schedule. I didn't turn. I didn't have to. The trick with eyes in your back is simply trusting the men who've got them. We drove off slow, made 2 legal rights and a legal left, and the blue sedan, bound by the necessity of appearing unremarkable, chose to have better things to do. By mid-morning, I was sitting in a corner booth at Grady's, the kind of diner that still keeps a pen behind its ear and doesn't fuss with the menu. I'd picked it for the excellent sight lines and the fact that the eggs arrived with their yolks exactly where God left them. And Rex took a counter stool with a panoramic view of the door. While Javi faced the window with a newspaper he was conspicuously not reading. And I nursed my second coffee, waiting for the two people who would tell me if my son died the way the paperwork said he did, or if the truth was far uglier. The first to slide into the booth was a woman with the ideal PI's look, a black blazer, hair pinned back not to be impressive, but simply to survive wind. "May Delgado," she said, flashing a license card I read out of habit as much as manners. "Rex says you're stubborn in the ways that matter." "Aldrich," I said, short-circuiting the pleasantries. I used up my fancy manners in another life. "Good," she said, her expression approving. Fancy manners means slow cases. A man in a plain wool sweater came next, carrying a messenger bag the size of a courthouse ledger and moving with the light, tired gait of someone who'd done rounds since sunrise. "Dr. Anek Bose," he introduced himself. "Hospitalist consults on toxicology. I'm off shift and entirely on coffee." We ordered in the style of people who knew they would forget to eat once the talking started. May set her tablet on the Formica and angled it so I could see a sterile dashboard of names and numbers. Dr. Bose took out a folder thick with printed charts that smelled faintly of toner and medical urgency. "Mr. Thorne gave me consent to review the medical record as your consultant, Dr. Bose began, his voice calm and matter-of-fact. The hospital portal coughed up the discharge summary, the labs, the meds, and the nursing notes. Not the whole enchilada, but enough tortilla to taste the filling. "I pulled public records," May added, her finger tracing a line on the screen. "Property deeds, business filings, civil cases. I also ran a basic sweep on your daughter-in-law's financials. What's public? What leaks? What careless people leave where the internet can trip over it?" The waitress refilled my cup and, blessedly, left us to our sins. "Dr. Bose started gently. Your son Julian presented 3 weeks before his death with generalized fatigue, dizziness, and shortness of breath. Initial admission note says probable viral syndrome. But then a cascade of findings turned the narrative. Anemia, electrolyte abnormalities, elevated liver enzymes. Imaging was inconclusive. He gets broad-spectrum antibiotics in case of a hidden infection, IV fluids. And here is the pivot. Benzodiazepines at night because the notes indicate he's anxious and can't sleep. Not wrong on paper, but the doses stair-step faster than I like without clear documentation of escalating distress. Meanwhile, he's at home 3 nights out of that last week on an outpatient plan that assumes a stable caregiver. He tapped a line in the MAR, the Medication Administration record. At home, pills are counted by faith. In the hospital, nurses scan barcodes. Faith isn't nothing. "Professor, but faith can be coached." "Coached by whom?" I asked, though I already knew the horrible outline of the answer. The note names the spouse as the primary caregiver, Dr. Stajul Bose stated, his eyes lifting to meet mine. She is listed as bringing in his home meds on day 12 so the pharmacy could reconcile. Good policy. But the bottle she brings is a fresh fill with a different manufacturer imprint than the one the hospital dispensed at the discharge the previous week. Not wrong. Pharmacies substitute generics all the time. Still, you mark it. Then a jump. A PRN order, pro re nata, as needed, for an extra dose if restless at night. Written by a covering resident after a single phone call documenting family concern. The next day, Julian's labs looked worse. He was readmitted. Then a delirium note. Patient somnolent, difficult to arouse, possible oversedation. They taper the benzo. He wakes. He tanks again 48 hours later. End-stage organs do that. So do the wrong drugs mixed the wrong way. He let the pages sit quiet. The diner clinked around us like ordinary life is supposed to. You think she helped him along? I asked. I don't put a bow on it. Professor, he replied. I think the record leaves room for both intent and error. But I don't like the dispensary switch, the PRN bump authorized by a busy doctor on a phone note. And I especially don't like the pattern of decompensation that matches sedative accumulation more closely than a single disease marching to its drum. He slid a single sheet toward me, a chart he'd drawn by hand, dates on one axis, meds on another, with specific stars marking where the home nights overlapped with higher reported anxiety. The stars looked exactly like someone had tried to decorate a fresh grave. What would you need to know for certain? I asked, the grim resolve hardening inside me. Pill counts from the house, he said immediately. Full fill history from her pharmacy, disposal logs if any were kept, and the hospital's internal Pyxis audit trail for the nights he received those extras. I would also need toxicology from blood that may still exist in the lab's long-term freezer, but that's a prayer best said with an ADA standing behind you. And if there were any home health visits, I'd need their notes and names. We didn't have home nurses, I said, my memory sharp. She said he was more comfortable with just her. May cleared her throat softly. Financial motive, she announced like a judge calling the next witness. 4 months ago, Serafina Vale opens a new line of credit, maxes it on 2 draws, $10,000 each. One purchase is flagged at a tool retailer 3 towns over. Receipt says, fuel line tool and assorted hand tools. The rest is banal luxury. 2 months ago, she co-signs a lease on a storage unit at Lakeview Lock and Stow. And last week, days before the will reading, she initiates a $28,400 wire transfer from a joint account to an LLC called Westbridge HR. That LLC has no website, but it pays out stipends to contract wellness consultants, a euphemism I've seen used when wealthy people want off-book help, sometimes legal, sometimes not. The bank compliance note uses the phrase, customer insists wire is for caregiver services, documentation requested. She's also been pulling cash in tidy $2,000 bites, a number people pick when they believe in reporting thresholds that don't exist. Did she get life insurance? Rex asked from the counter without turning his head. May nodded. 2 policies, both modest by rich people's standards, one through Julian's firm, one she purchased after they married. The beneficiary on the private policy is the spouse. The beneficiary on the employer policy was the father, you, professor, until last year, when it got changed to the spouse. A month ago, Julian changed it back to the father. The paperwork is complete and stamped. She'd have seen the premium notice, or the beneficiary confirmation. That would sour a breakfast, Javi murmured from behind his paper. May's finger tapped a line on the tablet. One more thing. Emails between Serafina Vale and a care coordinator at a concierge practice. I got those because people use the same weak password across their shopping and their cloud, and the cloud sent a receipt to a backup address she forgot she told it about. The coordinator recommends a night nurse named Kay. Price, who invoices through, surprise, Westbridge HR. There's no state license for a nurse under that name, I stated, the engineering mind immediately spotting the fault. There is a man with a record for unlicensed home care and attempted fraud who has used it as an alias. Price, May confirmed. Price, Rex repeated, testing the name for cracks. I want him in handcuffs, I said, my resolve absolute. We'll want him in recorded conversation first, May countered, the PI's caution overriding the victim's anger. Dr. Bose, can you wear a wire? He'll smell cop on Rex. Should doctors smell like billing? Dr. Zoom, Bose said, a dry joke. It confuses civilians. We are not setting stings, I stated, remembering Detective Morales' advice like it had been carved into the diner table. We gather, we preserve, we hand it to the people who do stings. Then we do this the dull way, May said, which is how you knew she was truly good. We serve preservation letters on the bank and the storage facility so nothing gets lost. We ask the ADA to subpoena Westbridge HR and this K. Price. We get the pharmacy logs. We interview the concierge outfit with counsel present so they don't pretend they thought K was a saint. You can ask the ADA for talks, I asked Dr. Bose. See, I can ask, he said. She can ask the lab. If samples exist, we can test for metabolites that smell like too much benzo meeting too little liver. The waitress slid plates in front of us, placing the food exactly where it belonged, like she'd been doing it since lunch was invented. I put half my rye toast in my pocket. Old men and squirrels share habits. But that storage unit, I said, my gaze fixed on the table. We don't go near it today. No, May agreed. Today, we send a letter on my letterhead and Mr. Saw Thorns. Preserve all contents, lock access, video, and logs. Spoliation is a word she'll learn the expensive way. Then we copy the ADA, so muscle comes with the dictionary. We ate enough to be legal and moved like we mattered. Rex peeled off to copy the plates he'd written down yesterday and today and drive them over to the precinct with a face the desk sergeant would remember. Javi headed to Tri-County to provide context for the mechanics of our bleeding brake line in case their techs wanted a poet who spoke fluent steel. Dr. Bose went to his office to compose a miraculous thing, an expert letter that says maybe in a way a judge might hear move. May and I walked 2 blocks to a courier that still believed in carbon paper. We sent the preservation letters by every method known to law and superstition. On our way out of the courier, we met the sort of man cities grow like mold under sinks. Clean, tall, wearing a suit that said not cheap and a smile that said free. He stepped into the path where you had to either stop or step into traffic. Mr. Aldrich, he said, counsel for Miss Seraphina Vale asked me to deliver an invitation to talk sense before things get. What did she say? Undignified. Say your name, I ordered, my voice low and flat. Mr. Price, he said, enjoying the way I didn't move. K, May muttered, half to herself, like a crossword answer clicking into place. Walk, I told her, not loud. He matched us step for step in reverse, an odd, challenging little dance men do when they think their charm carries light. See, no reason we can't have an adult conversation, he purred. Your son loved her. He wouldn't want a circus. You're tired. Grief makes people imaginative. Grief doesn't cut brake lines, I said. The same factual statement as yesterday, only with different weather. That, he said, his smile momentarily freezing, is an allegation best left off public sidewalks. He flicked his eyes over May. Private investigator. Fun. I can find your license number in 2 calls. You can find it by reading, she said, entirely unimpressed. It's on the website. He pulled an envelope from his inner pocket like a magician producing scarves. The change you found in the insurance beneficiary, he said to me, his focus returning, isn't as final as your lawyer thinks. Courts are understanding when dying men make hurried choices that don't reflect a lifetime of intent. There's a glide path here, Professor. Sign a joint stipulation that puts everything in a neutral trust while the court figures out true intent. And you can stop spending your pension on consultants. Tell your client, I instructed, not breaking my forward motion, to keep her agents off my car, off my curb, and off my daylight. Tell her counsel to talk to Mr. Thorne. I won't talk to her in alleys, diners, or sidewalks. If she wants dignity, she had a head start and burned it. For the first time, his smile forgot how to be spelled. You're making this expensive, he said. Good, May said, utterly without heat. So people who mean harm should pay retail. He let us pass like a gate that charges toll and then doesn't, maybe because the keepsake I carried in my memory outweighed his envelope. I felt Rex behind us before I saw him. He has a way of appearing where he'd be useful without explaining how he got there, and the insult was that he didn't even look at price. Back at my kitchen table, Mr. Thorne appeared in the speaker of my phone with the sound of other telephones breathing in the background. I've notified opposing counsel, he said, his voice clipped and precise, that all communications should go through me. I also filed a notice with the court that an interested party has attempted ex parte contact. It won't win us anything today, but judges are human, and humans keep lists. I told him about Westbridge HR and the storage unit lease. We'll get subpoenas, he said, and I'll draft a temporary restraining order barring disposition of any property pending a full inventory. You don't win wars with single filings, Professor. You win them by exhausting the other side's appetite for novel excuses. You'd have made a good army cook, Mr. Thorne, I said. Ah, better than a dancer, he said, and hung up to go fold paper into legal airplanes that land on benches. By late afternoon, May called from her car with a photo taken from 3 blocks away. Serafina stepping into Lakeview Lock and Stow, hair tied back, sunglasses, carrying a tote bag that made her shoulder tilt. She stayed 9 minutes, May reported. Came out visibly lighter. Did you go in? I asked. No, she said. Your preservation letter's on their way. If I walk in, she gets to claim I spooked her into moving her grandmother's quilts. We let the math sit. 9 minutes is enough to remove 1 box you knew exactly where it was. It is not enough to load a life. My guess? Papers, a thumb drive, maybe medications if she's foolish and lucky. We hung up, and I dialed Detective Morales. I am old enough to know when you ring the bell that brings the right kind of noise. Morales, he answered. Your friend Price introduced himself, I said, and our PI watched Miss Vale visit a storage unit 9 minutes after my attorney's preservation letters hit their fax. Good, he said, a satisfied grunt. Shitty for them. Good for us. I'll put a patrol on Lakeview Lock and Stow to be sure no one loses power on their cameras tonight, and I'll start the paperwork for a preservation order under my name. Also, Mr. Aldrich, he added, next time Price blocks your path, take 1 step closer and say, "Are you serving me?" If he says no, keep walking and call me. If he says yes, accept service and call your lawyer. That way, he doesn't get to pretend you're avoiding papers when you were merely avoiding nonsense. Copy, Detective, I said, and thank you for being boring. He laughed once. Boring beats flowers. We'll be in touch. Dusk used the lake like a mirror and found only what it brought. Rex knocked once and came in. He put a paper bag on the counter like an altar, fried chicken from the place that refuses to change its oil on a Tuesday, because Tuesday has always been the day. We ate standing up. Men who've done their homework don't sit until their stomachs remind them. It's motive now, Rex said around a wing. Money, control, embarrassment. You get all 3, and folks talk themselves holy. Add fear, I said. She saw the will, and she saw her version of the world lose its roof. Fear is gasoline, he concluded. It makes small fires loud. After dishes were done, after lists for the morning's logistics were compiled, after I moved the heavy flashlight half an inch back to its original spot, the kind of small, desperate thing you do when you can't actually move time, I stepped out onto the back stoop. The night smelled like cut grass and the oncoming, heavy breath of a change in the weather. Somewhere, 2 blocks away, a car door shut, the sound of people finally finishing the mundane details of days they would forget by breakfast. Inside, on the kitchen table, lay a row of artifacts that had turned a life into a case. A pink sheet with the Detective Morales's case number in the corner. A certified copy of Julian's will with a raised seal you could feel blind. A grease-stained napkin with the scribbled vanity plate ending in 7QX. And the last letter from my son, which could still warm my hand if I pressed it. The fog around motive had thinned. It wasn't burned off, not yet, but thinned enough to see the distinct, sharp shapes that matched the names we now had. Tomorrow would be entirely about paper and steel, about formal service and binding signatures. Tonight, I allowed myself to picture what Julian would have said if I had told him we'd hired a PI like May Delgado and a doctor like Anik Bose to walk with us. He'd have smiled the specific way he did when a complex, elegant solution finally fit. Good, he would have said. Use the right tools, Dad. I turned off the kitchen light and listened to the old house find its night sounds again. The line held. We would tug again in the morning. If I failed today, I knew the Serafina's defense would flip the narrative entirely, replacing malice with grief. By 9, Wardos AM, I was in a courthouse hallway that smelled exactly like old varnish and nervous cologne, with the distinct, low murmur of lives colliding with the law. Elias Thorne, my lawyer, stood beside me, his folder thick enough to stop a slow-moving bullet, and he wore the small, confident smile of a man who had brought enough paper to tilt a whole table. Assistant District Attorney Claire Nuan arrived promptly, carrying a large red accordion file whose tabs were labeled with the disciplined colors of a parade. Witness, evidence, preservation, warrant draft. Short ex parte calendar, she said, cutting straight to the strategy. We'll ask the judge for a temporary restraining order on the estate assets, a blanket preservation order on the storage unit, and all associated logs, subpoenas to Westbridge HR, the concierge practice, and the pharmacies, plus a search warrant for the storage unit based on the probable cause of the vehicle tampering, the PI observation, Price's call, and the suspicious timing of the whole thing. Mr. Struhl Thorne gave a tight nod. I'll handle the civil orders, he confirmed. You handle the steel. Ada Nuan. The bailiff opened the door with the distinct weariness of a man who has seen every bad idea arrive in a good suit, and we filed in. The judge, a woman with reading glasses on a cord and a posture that profoundly believed in the necessity of her chair, glanced at the monumental stack of motion papers, then looked pointedly at me, clocking the old man behind the noise. Counsel, she said, and Mr. Thorne began an elegant triage of the facts. Dates, facts, names, absolutely no adjectives. Nuan followed with pure nouns and unassailable statutes. She said brake line cut like she was describing the simple mechanics of the weather, and storage unit visit 9 minutes after preservation letter sent, like she was reading a train schedule that demanded immediate action. The judge asked 3 questions that were not the easy ones. What is your specific chain of custody on the vehicle evidence? Who, besides the respondent, had keys or access to the house? And what is your specific and articulable basis for the unit warrant today and not next Tuesday? Nuon answered with a calm that made the room quieter. The mechanic's documentation and secure transfer to an independent lab. Identified neighbors, Your Honor. And the respondent's agent approaching the petitioner with an invitation to talk sense, while referencing the beneficiary change, combined with the clear risk of spoliation demonstrated by the timed visit this morning. We can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, Your Honor. The judge looked at me over the top of her glasses, an old teacher recognizing a certain kind of stubborn kid. Mr. Aldrich, can you stay away from the respondent? I intend to, Your Honor, I said. The respondent does not return the favor. Good, she said, already writing the orders. TRO granted as to estate assets pending further order. Preservation order on the unit and its logs, including video, signed. Subpoenas signed. Search warrant approved, limited specifically to documents, tools, medications, and digital storage devices reasonably related to the alleged tampering and care of the deceased. Execute before midnight tonight. The bailiff stamped through the paper with the finality of a machine that gives the day its direction. Paper had turned into legally binding order. Names became boxes on a form. My morning's worry put on a badge. In the hall, Mr. Thorne exhaled slowly through his nose. That, he said, was as clean as they come. Nuon tucked the freshly signed warrant into a plastic sleeve the way people tuck photos of children. We'll serve the storage facility first, she decided. The process server will handle the civil orders for Serafina's house, but I'm sending a deputy with him. I don't like the way this one smells. Smells like gasoline, Rex said from behind us, having materialized with his hands in the pockets of a jacket that had known many hard winters. I'll tail the server from a block back. You will not approach, Colonel Vance, Nuon cautioned. You will be a witness with good shoes. Rex tipped 2 fingers like a salute. Yes, ma'am. The server, a woman with prominent calf muscles and a clipboard that had clearly survived real weather, met us on the courthouse steps. Thorne gave her the copies of the civil orders. Nuon gave her the tight, professional smile you give to people who go to doors so you don't have to. The server peeled off toward Serafina's building with the deputy in tow, and we went the opposite direction, toward Lakeview Lock and Stowe. The manager at the storage place had the look of a man who had always secretly wished to be asked for his ID, and Nuon showed him the warrant. He produced the keys to Unit 314 with the reverence people usually save only for communion. We held back while an evidence team arrived. 2 crime scene techs in matching polos, one with a camera, one with a roll of labels. Unit 314, the manager confirmed. Signed to a Miss Vale. Access logged at Surpstin 37 this morning. 10 minutes and 46 seconds. Preserve that log and the camera footage, Nuon ordered, her voice devoid of inflection. That is not a suggestion. The metal roll-up door shuddered and climbed, and the air that came out of the unit had the sickly, sweet smell of plastic and chemical desiccant. Inside, metal shelves held banker's boxes and a large plastic tote with the kind of cheap padlock people buy, thinking it will argue effectively with a pair of bolt cutters. The crime scene techs moved with a focused routine they'd made 300 times. Wide photo, mid photo, detail shot, then the gloves went on. Box A, the camera tech announced for the record. Inside, receipts from a tool retailer 3 towns over. Fuel line tool, clamp set, cutters, latex gloves, a mobile notary card with a number circled twice, and 2 distinct pharmacy vials. One was labeled with a name I knew too well, and the medication's imprint did not match the hospital formulary Dr. Bose had showed me yesterday. The other vial's label had been cleanly peeled. though the glue stubbornly remembered. Box B, the label tech continued. Inside, invoices from Westbridge HR with a signature in a hurried, unprofessional hand that liked to lie about its slant. K. Price, overnight care, a thumb drive tucked into a plastic pill organizer, and a printed schedule with columns for dose, time, and symptom. Next to the time, some entries had hand-drawn stars. I didn't need a doctor to guess which days landed Julian in the ICU. The tools, Nuan said quietly to the techs. Bag them. Prints if you can get them. Swabs if you can't. The vials, full chain, priority to tox. The paperwork, scan and preserve. We left the unit mostly full. Warrants are not shovels. They are carefully crafted tweezers. The manager signed a copy of the evidence receipt, like a man writing his name on a piece of history. Outside, the daylight felt suddenly louder. First steal, Nuan said to me, her eyes on the chain of custody forms as she signed them. Not the last. We were still in the parking lot when my phone rang. Tri-County's number. Anne. Someone tried to turn us dumb. Professor, she reported, her voice tight. A power flicker, then a manual pull on the exterior breaker. Our generator kicked in immediately. The cameras caught a man in a ball cap and a jacket he thought made him invisible. Partial plate 7QX at the end. He left with his walk of shame before I could teach him our customer service script. Everyone all right? I asked. Fine, she said. The evidence is sleeping like a cat in a sunbeam. I already emailed Morales the clips. Nuan had heard enough to mouth the single word. Toe? I shook my head. Breaker, I said. She put her finger to her phone and sent a text with 9 precise words. Somewhere, a patrol car changed its direction. Rex called a minute later. Service done. Professor, he reported. She tried the plea, not me. Then, I'm not taking that. Then, talk to my lawyer. The deputy said the line. You've been served. I was down the block. Coughed twice. No more. Any followers? I asked. One, he said. Mr. Price's smile on legs. He filmed it on his phone, which tells me he'd like a show. I filmed him filming it back. He did not enjoy the inverse. Back at my place, Elias Thorne opened his laptop like a traveling desk and drafted an inventory restraining order to bar disposition, concealment, or encumbrance of anything that looked like it once belonged to my son. We file this within the hour, he said. She'll scream. Screaming is free. We didn't even get to an hour before the next knock. Javi opened the door with 2 fingers and a weary head tilt. A man in a navy suit stood on my walk with an envelope and the rehearsed air of a person whose talent peaked in community theater. Are you Mr. Aldrich? He asked. I am, I said, stepping half a pace closer the way Morales had taught me. Are you serving me? Yes, he said, momentarily pleased to be in the right play at last. He held out the envelope, his phone recording the holdout. I took the paper and did not look at his phone. He left. We opened it at the table like we were disarming a small paper bomb. Motion for temporary injunction. Thorne read, alleging undue influence, elder exploitation, and conversion. He smiled without humor. We've touched a nerve. Court set it for next week. I scanned the dates. They won't like the judge they get, he said, tapping the corner of the document. She is not allergic to facts. Nuan texted. Storage clear. Evidence in transit. Follow-up warrant approved for Westbridge HR mail. Separate warrant out for Price on probation violation. Pickup team moving. That, Rex said over my shoulder, is a consequence. It was, but the day wasn't done testing our lines. At 4:00 p.m., a flatbed tow truck idled at the curb like a bad idea with hydraulics. The driver, a guy with forearms carved like conversation, walked up to my garage door with a clipboard. "Lot release for a blue sedan," he announced. "Signed by Officer C. Lane." He showed me a form that looked just enough like a city release to fool a tired man. Javi laughed in a way I hadn't often heard. "Friend," he said, resting a hand on the garage door, "there is no blue sedan here for you, and that form is the kind the internet sells you for $19.95. It's got a stamp," the man said, uncertain now. "So does my kid's sticker book," Javi replied, his voice firming to steel. "Back your rig off my curb and go to the station to ask for Officer Lane. When the desk sergeant tells you there's no such officer, give him that paper in the name of the man who hired you. Don't throw yourself on a grenade that isn't paying union wages." The driver weighed his immediate future in two hands and chose the one with fewer fireworks. He tucked the paper, tipped his chin, and backed the flatbed into the kind of reverse that says, "I want to keep my job." Rex took 3 photos of the plate like a man collecting stamps. I texted Morales the plate number and the photo of the fake release. He answered with a single, succinct word. "Got it." At 5:20 p.m., after a dinner that tasted like nothing because some meals are purely for refueling and not for joy, Nuon called. Her voice had the clipped cadence of good tidings, held strictly to the speed limit. "We have Price, Professor," she announced. "Traffic stop on a side street near the unit. Outstanding probation violation. Found him in his car. We'll save the surprises for court, but I'll say this. Our partial plate was not a coincidence. He'll be kept overnight. I'll have an investigator sit him in the morning, with counsel, to listen to his song." "What's the first note?" I asked. "Men like him lead with martyrdom," she said. "Then discounts. Then a story where they were helping. We'll let him sing it onto a recording." "And Miss Vale?" I asked. "She called my office twice to complain about this indignity," Nuon said. "I told her to have her attorney call me. He did. I told him to read the orders we served him, and to tell his client to go home, drink water, and stop touching boxes with numbered seals. I sat down on the cold garage step because I wanted to be touching concrete when the world shifted." Paper had turned into a door we could walk through. Steel had shut behind the people who thought they owned the hall. Javi stood beside me and rolled his shoulder like a man putting down a heavy bag. "Say the word, Professor," he offered, his voice low, "and I'll pull the master cylinder and lines on your sedan tomorrow." "Knew everything. We'll give that car a proper retirement party when this is over." "Not yet," I said, looking at the dark shape of the car. "Let it sit in amber a little longer. It's a better witness than I am some days." Rex stepped out back and looked down the alley like it owed him a report. "They'll get noisy now," he observed. "The showy kind of loud. Don't mistake that for strength." "I won't," I said. My hands were steady. Inside, on the table, lay copies of court orders with raised seals that bit the light. In a city evidence lot, a thumb drive and 2 vials had left a rented space and entered the permanent record. In a holding cell, a man who called himself K had met a night where the ceiling buzzes. And on roofs and porches, people like Rex and Javi were still the kind of neighbors who say, "Don't start that engine," and mean a life. I made coffee too late for wisdom and drank it anyway. The house settled. The line in my chest pulled tight and then paid out a little. Just enough slack to remind me I was still holding something that could pull back. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below. Even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.